Every 4 years, the Olympic Games present themselves as one of the most powerful symbols of global unity, where nations temporarily set aside political tensions to compete through sport, and where individual athletes become representations of discipline, sacrifice, and human potential. But beneath this carefully constructed narrative lies a far more complex and less discussed reality, because the Olympics are not just a sporting event. They are a highly engineered global economic system, designed in a way that separates risk from reward with remarkable precision, allowing one central organization to benefit regardless of the financial outcomes experienced by the host cities. And at the center of this system sits the International Olympic Committee, an institution that does not directly fund the massive infrastructure, does not absorb the cost overruns that frequently occur, and does not carry the long-term financial burden of maintaining underutilized facilities, yet still captures a significant share of the economic value generated by the Games, which raises a fundamental question that most viewers never consider. How does an organization create a global event of this scale while transferring the majority of financial risk to others? And what structural mechanisms allow this model to persist over decades despite repeated evidence of economic strain on host cities? To understand this system, it is necessary to first examine how demand is created, because cities do not simply decide to host the Olympics based on financial calculations alone. Instead, they are influenced by a reinforced narrative that frames hosting as a transformative opportunity, where governments believe the Games will accelerate growth, increase tourism, enhance global visibility, and leave behind a lasting legacy of economic growth. And this narrative is not entirely unfounded, because large-scale investments can indeed produce long-term benefits under the right conditions. However, the critical detail lies in the bidding process, where cities are not competing based on conservative projections, but rather on increasingly ambitious promises, each attempting to demonstrate greater commitment, more impressive visions than their competitors, which creates a psychological and strategic escalation, where the perceived prestige of hosting begins to outweigh the discipline of cost control. And the Olympics transition from an event that cities evaluate rationally to an opportunity that they pursue symbolically, driven by the desire for international recognition and political signaling rather than purely economic return. Once a city secures the right to host, the nature of the commitment changes immediately because the timelines are fixed and the audience is guaranteed, creating a situation where failure is not an option. And when failure is removed as a possibility, cost becomes a flexible variable, allowing budgets to expand in response to operational challenges, design changes, and unforeseen requirements. And this is where one of the most consistent patterns in Olympic history emerges, the phenomenon of cost overruns, where initial projections are frequently exceeded by significant margins, sometimes doubling or even tripling in scale, as a consequence of structural pressure to deliver a flawless event, shifting the financial burden to taxpayers who may not directly benefit. At the core lies the bidding system itself, which functions not merely as a selection process, but as an engine that drives increasing commitments from participating cities. Because unlike a traditional procurement model where costs are minimized to win a contract, the Olympic bidding process rewards ambition, scale, and vision, meaning that cities are incentivized to propose larger and more comprehensive plans, which in turn raises the baseline expectations for future bids, creating a reinforcing cycle where each successive round of bidding pushes the overall cost structure higher. And this system operates effectively because it leverages competitive psychology, where decision-makers are influenced not only by objective criteria, but also by the desire to win, to outperform other cities, and to secure a globally prestigious event, where higher spending becomes a proxy for seriousness and capability, even if it introduces additional financial risk. The most critical aspect of the Olympic model emerges when examining how risk and reward are distributed across participants, because while host cities commit to funding infrastructure, managing logistics, and absorbing potential financial losses, the International Olympic Committee operates with a fundamentally different exposure profile, as it retains control over the core revenue streams associated with the Games, including broadcasting rights, global sponsorship agreements, and licensing arrangements, all of which generate substantial income independent of the specific financial outcomes experienced by the host city, creating a structural asymmetry where value extraction is centralized while risk is distributed, raising questions about sustainability and fairness. To fully understand why this model is so effective, it is essential to recognize that the primary product of the Olympics is not the event itself, but the global attention it generates. Because in a media-driven world, attention functions as a form of currency, and events that can reliably capture the focus of billions of viewers hold immense economic value. And the Olympics achieve this at a scale that few other events can match, making them highly attractive to broadcasters and sponsors who are willing to pay significant amounts for the opportunity to access this audience. And because the International Olympic Committee controls the rights to this attention, it effectively operates as a gatekeeper within a global media ecosystem, determining how the event is distributed, who can participate commercially, and how the associated revenue is allocated, which reinforces its position as the central authority within the system. Despite the risks, cities continue to participate, highlighting psychological and political factors where symbolic value justifies expenditure. Supported by a strong strategic moat, because the Olympics occupy a unique position in global culture that is not easily replicated, as there is no alternative event that combines the same level of historical significance, international participation, and media attention, which means that the International Olympic Committee faces limited competition, allowing it to maintain control over the structure in terms of engagement. And as long as this exclusivity remains intact, the underlying model continues to function effectively, reinforcing the organization's ability to extract value from the system it governs. This reveals that the true competition is not only between athletes, but within the economic architecture that supports the games. Join the craft for more strategic teardowns.